Good day, beloveds. Today's video will be about how to summon your ancient spirit. This is going to be rather difficult to explain, but I'm going to try nonetheless, so hang in there with me through the ums and all of the pauses. We will get through this together. So as you all know, when I learn something, I share it with you, my community, because if we can all grow together through the method of each one teach one, then it saves us hundreds of years of having to repeat old mistakes that our ancestors made, because they typically teach us at their height of knowledge when they're in their 30s to 50s. That's why older people are considered elders and teachers of the village, because they have attained the most wisdom. When they pass this wisdom down to the children at a young age, which is why they usually teach the schools, that saves the children generations of having to make up for those mistakes and to be able to put those burdens down a lot sooner than the previous generation and generations. So with that being said, this video is dealing with being able to go back and contact those ancient teachers, your ancestors, your family, to bring that knowledge to the forefront, because not only is it in the teachings that you remember, but it's also in your blood. And when you understand how to summon spirits, then you can summon this information as well. So I will explain where all of this came from. I recently experienced the death of my pet kitten, Storm, and Storm had the most beautiful green eyes. Well, I've never really had the opportunity to look at anything that has transitioned the body afterwards, after it has transitioned for a period of time, other than at funerals where you kind of just walk by and you view briefly. You don't want to be caught like observing and analyzing the body, because that would just be weird to people. But honestly, this is something that intrigued me, the way that his body looked after, there was no soul left in it. So me and my son were digging a hole to bury him. We put him in the hole afterwards and just kind of looked at him and observed how the beautiful sparkle in his green eyes was just gone, and his eyes were left dull. And it triggered the thought of, wow, spirit will up and leave if your body is no longer a safe haven for it to have a home in. It will just leave. So I was wondering, what could you do to allow spirit to stay inside of you longer, besides eating a proper diet, having proper thoughts? The reason thoughts are so important is because spirit lives forever. So when it passes from one body to the next, you want it to have thoughts that will uplift it in the next lifetime, that will give it the next, it picks the situations, for the lessons that it comes into. So if you learn the lessons now, then the next situation will be one that is less suffering. Let's say that. So the idea is to minimize suffering each lifetime. And when you harm your body and your mind to the point where spirit no longer feels comfortable in it, it will up and leave. So being able to know the nature of something, is of extreme importance when it comes to summoning spirits. The nature of anything, as long as you know it, can be summoned. And this is why you don't want to try summoning anything that you don't really know, because if you don't know the nature of the spirit that you're summoning, then you can summon something that can harm you. So this is typically why tribes back in, even now, you know, it's not even just back then, you still have tribes out there that practice worshiping, and not really worshiping, but giving respect and honor to their spirit guides. They all have their own names and they all have their own attributes. And the reason they give certain attributes to these gods and they name them the way that they do, even the Egyptians, is because you want to know what you're summoning. And if you study the nature of something, then you know what you're summoning and how it can help you in whatever time of crisis that you have or that you need. So this is also how the Haitians were able to defeat the French and gain their independence, is because they summoned the spirits of their ancestors. They were still really deep into their culture, and they understood the nature of all of the spirit gods that they were summoning. Here, we don't really know the really powerful ones because that has been wiped out of our history. It's this whole thing about separating us from who we are and telling us that we're somebody else so that we don't really understand our birthrights. And this is not just, indigenous people that I'm talking about. It's really about human life, period. And the rights that we have as being born into this plane have kind of been taken away or shielded from us. But when you study common law and you understand natural law, then nobody can take that away from you. And that's where you become powerful and where you claim your power, where you walk in it and you take it back by knowing who you are and claiming all of your birthrights, which is to be born, which is to travel without having to follow rules and ordinances and statutes and all of these other limitations that they put on us. So and codes. Codes are a big one because there's most of the law that we follow today are codes and ordinances. Is not law. So there's a difference between something that is legal and something that is lawful. But if you get Black's Law Dictionary 4th edition or lower, you will be amazed at the terminology and the trickery that is used to keep us in bondage mentally. And that's the most important thing, is the mental bondage, because when the mind is free, then there's nothing that you can't do. So having a free mind, you're able to call upon your ancient spiritual self, which I will call, for the sake of this video, the dragon, because the dragon has been known in a lot of Chinese and Asian folklore, but over in the western side of the world, we don't understand what the dragon is. And I'm going to tell you, because when you are in contact with certain mushrooms, they show you what the dragon is. And that may have to be for a different video. But just to give you a glimpse, it's a part of you that has been asleep for a long time. And when you awaken it, it seems like a beast to the people who don't have the ability to tap into it. Because when you awaken the dragon, they can see the spirit of the dragon not only in your eyes, but in the walk and the talk, the way you appear as a whole. When you step into a room, they can feel that energy coming off of you, and they know that your beast is awakened. So don't be afraid of this beast. Learn how to tame it. And you learn how to tame it by knowing the nature of it. And I keep talking about the nature of things, so let's go back to that. Starting with a rock, just for a small example. If you analyze a rock or observe a rock is sturdy, it's hard, it's grounded, it's stable, it's dependable. And That's the nature, some of the natures of rocks, but many different rocks have different natures. That's why a lot of the stones that we wear them because the nature of that stone resonates on a different frequency. Some stones can absorb sound, can absorb negativity. Some stones can absorb and attract things and people. This is known throughout many lands except here in the West. And lately we've been getting onto this so-called bandwagon, but it's not anything new age. It's just the old age coming back around again. So knowing the nature of a rock will allow you to summon the strength of that rock when you need it, because you know the nature. Anything that can be observed by the mind can be duplicated by the mind, because the mind absorbs that information like a program. So when you program the nature of anything that you observe, you can call upon that nature just by shifting your mind to that perspective. And when you do that, it's summoning. It's called summoning a spirit. So we'll say nature and spirit are very, very closely related. Now, rocks are not the only thing that have a nature. So do different animals and birds, like eagles, vultures, and so do, dogs and bears. And so you'll find that a lot of Native Americans and indigenous tribes, like our ancestors, they called upon the spirit and the nature of these animals to be harnessed within them when they needed it the most. And that's why we have rituals, and that's why we do meditation, because you're literally shifting your mind into the nature of whatever it is that you've observed. So culture is very important. It's very critical to knowing the nature of not just yourself, but the people who came before you. And when you tap into that information that they've been passing down from generation to generation, you can call upon your ancestors. So it's good to ask about the people in your family and know who they were. It's good to know where you came from. And history is critical so that you can have a sense of pride about the people. When I am around my family, I fall in love with myself all over again, because I'm like, wow, I have such amazing, gifted, talented, strong, intelligent people in my family. And when you're around them and you feel that sense of intelligence and know that all the skill sets are given to each individual in that family for a reason, then you feel powerful. So people, be around your family. Be in the presence of your family as much as you can. I realized that there's a difference, just a slight difference between family and familiar. A familiar is usually what, we call a witch or warlock's pet, like a cat or whatever they have as a pet. The reason they keep that pet around and it's become a familiar is because it's become so close to them. It's almost like family, and they study the nature of that familiar. When they study the nature of that cat, they can actually tap into the hidden powers and skills of that familiar and use it as their own. So every story that we've been taught, it has like a spiritual beginning. And when you understand that spiritual beginning, it can help you in everyday life. It can give you the eyes that you need to see. Opening up is how you can heal. Facing your demons and facing your shadows is how you heal. And I'm a shadow worker. I have the ability to travel to the underworld with people and lift them up from that dark place and show them a little bit of light, because that's what they see when I'm near. They see the light inside of me, and they see the light inside of you. So I give my light to you through this channel so that you can give your light to someone else, and we can all make the world a lighter place. Even your body, your spiritual body, can become lighter, and you can start shedding that dead heavy weight that's pulling you down, that gravity. Because the only gravity that exists is really in your mind. Gravity doesn't affect everything. It only affects those who are holding on to very heavy, deep-rooted illnesses and trauma. And now it's time to let that go. So without making this video any longer, I'm gonna summarize and wrap it up. We're talking about observing the nature of things so that you can summon the spirit of it at a later time when you need it. And people, you are also living spirit. So the best thing to do is to summon yourself, summon your ancestors that reside inside of your bloodline. Know who your ancestors are, first of all. Like, look at the pictures of people who have passed away and look at their demeanor. Ask your family if they know any key attributes that those ancestors had. Your grandparents or great-grandparents or great-great-great-grandparents, the further you can go back, the better. I know where my bloodline is now, and I know who my people are. So just knowing that helps me understand what gifts run deep within my family. And it's good for you to know what gifts run deep within yours. Once you can learn how to wield your gifts and your strengths and your powers, you can summon your living spirit and call on any of your ancestors at any time, and ceremony helps to do that. So this is why I hold ceremonies. I help people tap into who they are and help them see where they come from. So I'm learning to live again and walk in that path without being afraid, without being ashamed, and without caring if people understand it or not. All I need to know is it's real, So don't ever let people tell you otherwise. If you know something deep down to be true, it's okay to look crazy. It's okay to look weird. I've always looked weird and crazy, but people always come back and say, Kiana, you were, really talking over my head about 5 years ago when I first met you. But a lot of things that you said stuck with me, and I understood it in time. And you don't know how happy that is to make me, for me to hear people, tell me this. So that lets me know that I'm not wasting my time, and the things that I'm telling you all, it may not make sense right now, but it will resonate with you when you need it. So anyway, thanks for watching, beloveds. And as always, I appreciate you. Thanks for helping this community grow. If you've learned something, each one teach one. Pass this video to someone else who you think may need it. And peace.